Okay, so in this video, I am going over how to solve matrices, or how to solve systems of equations with matrices. This whole first page is basically just going over steps on how to solve it. The process of doing this is called Gauss-Jordan elimination, and it's basically taking a combination of substitution and elimination of the rows. We could do this by hand, but I'm going to teach you the calculator method. But you use elimination to get it into reduced row echelon form. This is where I have a diagonal column of ones, and then in the square part of the matrix, so the part without the answers, I should have only ones and zeros, and all of the ones should be diagonal, everything else should be zero. Then these are my answers. So this is telling me my x value is A, my y value is B, and my z value is C. So my steps are to make sure that my equation is in alphabetical order. So if I have x, y, z, it goes x, y, z for all of my equations. Then I want to write it as an augmented matrix. I need to determine the matrix's size. This one's going to be 2 by 3 because it has 2 rows, 3 columns. Then I have my actual calculator steps. I'm going to press second, arrow over to edit, press enter, type in that size of the matrix that I had. So if I was doing this, this would go right here. Then I want to type in all of my coefficients so that the matrix on the calculator looks like the matrix on the paper. I'm going to press second mode, which is going to take me back home. Then I'm going to press second and then the X inverse button to get to matrix. I'm going to arrow over to the math option this time and choose choice B, which is RREF. I need to scroll down to find that. Then I press second and then X inverse to get my matrix again. And typically I'll press 1 because that's the matrix I've edited. It's got a whole list of letters. You can put in whichever matrix you edited. It will give you an answer from there. So if it looks something like this, where it's got 1, 0, 0, 1, and then it's got the answers, this is telling me my x value is -4 and my y value is 1. It gives me an answer of -4, 1. If I see something like this, where it has only one of my answers, so x equals -4, but nothing for the bottom, all zeros, and it has to be all zeros. It can't be any other number. This means there's infinitely many solutions. If I have something where it gives me that my x equals -4, but then in the bottom row I have something like this where it's 0, 0 equals 1, this is telling me, if I wrote this as an equation, 0 equals 1. So this one is telling me there are no solutions. So this whole first page was just basically steps on how to do it as a calculator. Now I am actually going to solve these out. So this one wants me to write it, solve it using the calculator, and to write my augmented matrix, the matrix the calculator gives me, and then my answer. So I'm going to start off by looking at how many variables I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equations, and then I have I have x, y, z, w. So I have 4 variables. Before I even write my augmented matrix, it's pretty good practice to go ahead and write these equations with all of my letters, even if they don't appear. So for example, in my first equation, I'm missing x, so I'm going to write 0x plus y plus z minus 2w equals -3. My second equation is missing w, so I'm going to have x plus 2y minus z plus 0w equals 2. My third equation has all 4 variables, so I have 2x plus 4y plus z minus 3w equals -2. And my fourth equation again has all 4 variables, so I'm just going to copy that over. I have x minus 4y minus z minus w equals 19. So now I need to go write this as an augmented matrix. That is just taking all of my coefficients and writing them out, and then all of my answers and writing them out. Each equation is a row. So I have 0, 1, 1, -2, -3 for my first equation. Then my second one is going to give me 1, 2, negative 1, 0, 2. The coefficients, remember, are the numbers out in front of each of these letters. And then the last number is the number that it equals. My third one, I have 2, 4, 1, negative 3, negative 2. My final row, I have 1, negative 4, negative 7, negative 1, negative 19. So this is my augmented matrix. I need to determine my size in order to type it into the calculator. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So it's going to be a 4 by 5. I'm going to type this into the calculator. So following the steps on the calculator, I'm going to go second, which is the blue button up here. The inverse button is right below the math button. It's the fourth one down on the left side. I come up with this list. Sometimes you will have matrices entered, sometimes you won't. It just depends on if your calculator's memory has been reset and the last person using it. So I want to go ahead and arrow over to edit. I'm going to pick the first matrix just to make things easy. My matrix size is 4 by 5. Then I just need to copy these numbers over into the calculator. So I have 0, 1, 1, negative 2, negative 3, 1, 2, negative 1, 0, 2, 2, 4, 1, negative 3, negative 2, 1, negative 4, negative 7, negative 1, negative 19. I would recommend checking that your answers here are entered correctly. Also, on the very last number, make sure you hit enter so the matrix stores it. But make sure all of your numbers are entered correctly. This is the biggest mistake I see when people are using matrices to solve systems of equations, is they mistype or they type 2 numbers in one box and then it messes up the entire calculation. So once I've checked that these match up, I'm going to go second mode to go back home. Then I'm going to go second matrix. I'm going to arrow over to math. I want choice B, so I have to scroll past all the numbers. Here's B. I press enter. Then I'm going to go back to second, X inverse. And this time, I'm just going to, on the names category, I'm just going to press enter or 1 to get my first matrix. It puts it in the calculator. So this is telling the calculator, solve my matrix for the variables. Then I just press enter, and it gives me a matrix. So I'm going to copy this down on my paper. And again, those steps for the matrix are on the first page. Okay, so now that I have my matrix, I am going to take a look at it. I have, if I ignore my answer column, I have a nice square matrix. I have 4 columns, 4 rows right there. My diagonal, it always has to be from left to right, has a bunch of 1s, and everything else is 0s. So this is good. This is telling me my answer. X is negative 1. So if I write this as a coordinate point, I have negative 1. Y is 2. Z is 1. And W is 3. So here is my final answer. On the test, I will be looking for this matrix, and this matrix, and this answer. So if you can do this without this step, that's fine. If you can't, go ahead and write it. It's not going to hurt you. So what I want you guys to do is pause the video, take a few minutes to work on number 2, and then I will work through it and you can check your answer. So this one, we are lucky to have all of our variables with all of our letters. So I can start off by writing my augmented matrix. I have negative 3, 5, 3, negative 19 for my first row. Then I have 3, 4, 4, 8 for my second. 4, negative 8, negative 6, 26. This matrix is a 1, 2, 3. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, so it's a 3 by 4. I'm going to type this into my calculator. So I'm going to go second, x inverse, arrow over to edit. I'm going to change the size from 4 by 5 to 3 by 4. And then I want to type in those numbers, so I shouldn't cover them up. I have negative 3, 5, 3, negative 19, 3, 4, 4, 8. Then I have 4, negative 8, negative 6, 26. I'm going to go back home, so I go second mode. Oh, I should clear off my other matrix. Then I'm going to go second, x inverse, arrow over to the math, scroll down to my choice B. Then I'm going to go second, x inverse, enter to get my first matrix. And then I'm going to copy this down on my paper. So if I look at the square part of the matrix, I have a nice diagonal of 1s and 0s everywhere else. So this will give me my answer. My answer here is going to be 4, negative 2, 1. And this is telling me where all three of those equations cross. Okay, so same idea for number 3. And we're just going to keep on going through these. On this one, I have 3 variables. So I'm going to make sure all of my equations when I write it out have it. I have x minus y plus 2z equals 4. Then I have x plus 0y plus z equals 6. 2x minus 3y plus 5z equals 4. 3x plus 2y minus z equals 1. I'm going to go ahead and write this as a matrix. Move the paper a little bit. So my matrix here is going to be 1, negative 1, 2, 4. 1, 0, 1, 6. 2, negative 3, 5, 4. 3, 2, negative 1, 1. So then I'm going to go ahead and type this into the calculator. So I go second matrix, I arrow over to edit. Oh, I forgot to say my size. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So I'm going to do a 4 by 4. Then I'm going to go ahead and type this in. So I have 1, negative 1, 2, 4. 1, 0, 1, 6. 2, negative 3, 5, 4. 3, 2, negative 1, 1. I go back home, I go second matrix, I go over to math, I choose RREF. Then I'm going to go second matrix A, which gives me this matrix. So I'm going to go copy that down. Okay, so if I take a look at this matrix, it looks right. It looks square. It has that diagonal of 1s, but notice I'm missing my answer column. So that means this column right here has to be my answers. So this last row right here is actually telling me 0 equals 1. That's not something that can happen. So my answer here is actually no solution, because that last row makes it so it doesn't work. Because whenever I'm working with augmented matrices, this final column is always what it equals. So kind of think of it like these have equal signs in between. So these ones are my letters, so this is X, Y, Z, and then I have 0 equals 1 for that final one, which isn't true. So again, pause the video, take a few minutes to work on number 4, and then play when you are ready to check your answer. So number 4, this one, I have all my variables and all my equations, so I can go ahead and start by writing my augmented matrix. I have 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, negative 1, negative 1, 1. This matrix has 3 rows, 4 columns. So I'm going to go type this into the calculator now. Oops, I hit the wrong button. I have to wait. There you go. So now I can go clear. I'm going to go second matrix, edit. This time I have a 3 by 4. So I have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, negative 1, negative 1. Oops. Where did I mess up? Over here, this should be a negative 1, 1. Then I go second quit, second matrix, arrow over to math, scroll down to choice B. Then I go second matrix, enter my A, which gives me this matrix. Oh, whatever, I'll write it here. 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So just because right now, if I look at the square, I don't necessarily have that nice diagonal of 1s, this could mean infinitely many solutions. I need to look at my final row to make sure that the answer it gives me is a 0. Otherwise, it's again telling me 0 equals 1, which unfortunately it is. So whenever I have a final column or a row that ends in 1 in my final column, this means there is no solution. Okay, we just have one more example to work through. So I want to go ahead and plug this one into the calculator. Before that, I need to write my augmented matrix. I have 3 equations with 3 variables, so I can just start off by writing the augmented matrix. I have 1, negative 2, 3, 9, negative 1, 3, 1, negative 2. Then I have 2, negative 5, 5, 17. This one is a 3 rows, 4 columns. I'm going to go type this into my calculator. Clear my screen. I'm going to go second matrix, edit. 3 by 4 is already set up right. So then I have 1, negative 2, 3, 9, negative 1, 3, 1, negative 2, 2, negative 5, 5, 17. Then I go second matrix, math, scroll down to RREF, which is choice B. Second matrix, enter. Copy this one down. Okay. This one, if I take a look at it, it has that nice square with the diagonal of 1s and all 0s. So this one will give me an answer. It's going to be 1, negative 1, 2. So again, I want to go ahead and pause the video. Work on number 6, check around, and then when you feel ready, check your answer by playing the video. So again, 3 equations, all 3 variables show up. I can start off by writing my augmented matrix. I have negative 3, 7, 2, 1, negative 5, 3, negative 5, negative 8. Then I have 2, negative 2, negative 3, 15. This one is again a 3 by 4. I'm going to go type this into my calculator. So I'm going to go second matrix, edit this matrix, -3, 7, 2, 1, -5, 3, -5, -8, 2, -2, -3, 15. I'm going to go to math, arrow down to B. Then I'm going to go second matrix, put it in that first matrix, which I'm going to copy down. So this goes ahead and gives me a nice square diagonal of 1s and then 0s everywhere else. So my answer here is 7, 4, -3 in parentheses.